I ended up going down the rabbit hole thinking about how we compare ourselves to other people and just how unhealthy that can be. And it's like, I don't know what it is. Like, we're always like trying to find, like, thinking things like, oh, well, that person has it so much better than me, or that person has so much more money and they're lucky and all this kind of shit. Or, comparing yourself to where you are in life compared to other people. And I do this all the time. Like, I'm trying to grow my business and become better at that. And I'll see somebody that's way more successful than I am, that's younger than me. And my brain will start to go down that path and I'll realize like, dude, that's not the mindset that I've decided to have. So like for me, it's more like, and Cub and I have mentioned this in past episodes. It's like, we both believe that comparing yourself to your past self is the most healthy way to go. And there's a lot of people that have that same mindset, and a lot of people that sort of teach that kind of thing. It's like if you're comparing yourself to other people, it's like you never have all the information. So it's kind of counterproductive. But like you have all the information to compare yourself to you, say a month ago or a year ago or 10 years ago. So I've been doing that more often. And, a lot of times it's not the best because like I've had more successful years than other years. So when I do that, a lot of times it'll be sort of a wake up call, and it's kind of like, oh shit, I did a lot better in fucking 2009, or whenever. But, I'll get into graph and all that kind of stuff, but I just wanted to start, I don't know, I didn't even write anything down. I just fucking had this thought, and I wanted to see what was up with it in terms of recording an episode. So what started all this, what's kind of funny, it was a meme that I saw. It was like, I was just scrolling through, and I always read them like that. I don't post memes or anything, but I've actually learned shit from memes, and, not so much reading something on a meme and then believing it, but like a lot of times I'll read a meme and then go Google search it and actually end up learning a bunch of stuff. But that's not even close to what I wanted to talk about. But I saw this meme and it said something like, if you didn't come from the projects or struggle financially, you didn't come from the bottom. And, the meme itself didn't affect me, but it just kind of got me thinking, like, what is the bottom? Like, is the projects in America the bottom? And I was like, there's people that have it worse. Like, there's a lower bottom than that. I mean, there's people that live on the streets. They don't have electricity. They don't have all this kind of stuff. They're raising their family in a car. And so is that the bottom? And then I started thinking even further, and I'm like, fuck, well, there's people in other parts of the world that don't even have a fucking running water and electricity. And I just started thinking about all this stuff that I've seen. Like, I heard about this, I think it's like a village somewhere where, and there's probably a lot of places, I'm sure there are a lot of places like this, where their only source of drinking water is like a pond, this like muddy pond, and like people piss and shit in it. So it's like, these people are dying from sickness because they're drinking contaminated water, but that's the only water source that they have. So they're like bathing in it and they're drinking it. And I just started thinking like, fuck, well, is that the bottom? And like, I'm like, there's probably people even worse. There's people in war zones, like where fucking bombs are exploding around them. So like, is that the bottom? It's like, you keep going further. I don't mean to laugh. That's a fucked up place to laugh. But you keep thinking like further and further and further down. Like there's genocide happening right now. There's like slavery is not a thing of the past. Like there are fucking slaves right now. There's human trafficking. There's fucking all kinds of fucked up shit going on. So like, not to get too far into this depressing shit, but it's just sort of like, what is the bottom? Like, do you really come from the bottom? If I almost think like there's no one in America that is truly at the bottom when you look at other places, and honestly, like even that can be subjective too. So I don't know. It was just some things that I was thinking about. And the main point of all this was like, just sort of that idea of comparing yourself to other people, whether it's comparing yourself to people that you perceive as being further along than you, or people that didn't have it as bad as you. And it's kind of like, I just sort of feel like that regardless of how you're doing that, if you're looking at it that way, it can be very unhealthy. Of course, there's like things that you can do. You can compare yourself to someone else for, say, inspiration. So if you're a graph writer, I think there's a positive and a negative way of comparing yourself. So like, let's say the positives, you could say, you see another writer that's sort of where you want to be, whether it's how up they are on the streets or their style or their can control or whatever that is. Like you can use that comparison as inspiration to like hype you up and want to do better. You can see that like, oh, that's where I want to be. Like I need to step up my game and like practice more, or I need to go do whatever it is, to inspire you to push yourself harder. So I think that's very positive. But then there's negative where you could say like, oh, I'm never going to be where that guy is, like, or that girl is. She's got it all. Like, she was born with all this talent. She's lucky and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of people are sort of discounting, this, what it took to get there. Like most people aren't just born with all this talent. Like you have to develop it. And we talked about that in the mindset episode, like developing and all that stuff. But I wanted to talk more about the comparing yourself thing, or whatever the fuck. Because, I just think a lot of us do that. I just feel like it's more healthy to say, instead of looking at somebody and saying like, I'm never going to get there, just look at how far you've come. And if it's not satisfying to you and you don't see any growth, then maybe that's your trigger to push yourself further and improve your styles or whatever it is. I was also thinking a lot about, when people compare themselves to, financially, you get a lot of animosity going in both directions. You feel like you have people at the top. Well, I don't even want to use that term, but there's, say, people that are financially well off and they're comparing themselves to people that aren't, and there's like that whole judgment thing. It's just so fucking stupid, like judging people for what kind of car they have, like in both directions. So if somebody rolls up in a Bentley, and you don't have any money and you're thinking about, oh, well, fuck that guy, he's got a Bentley and look at him fucking showing off and all that kind of stuff. Or on the other end of the spectrum, you got the person in a Bentley and another person in like an old beat up car. And they're like, oh, look at that guy. He can't even afford a fucking new car. And it's like, it's all bullshit. It's like, fuck, who gives a fuck what someone else is doing? It's like, there's so much comparison and so much negativity that comes from it. It's just like, I don't know. It kind of pisses me off, really, like when I'm really talking about it. It's fucking annoying. But, there's also, I feel like there's this misconception of like thinking about people that were born into money. Like I'm sort of in the middle, like I was born lower middle class. So I don't know what it's like to be born into money, and I don't know what it's like to dodge bullets on my way to school. So like I kind of had just sort of like a middle of the road kind of upbringing. I'm grateful I'm actually very grateful for that. Like I didn't have necessarily like a head start in life. Like I didn't have a bunch of money to fall back on when I started my business. So I really had to build it all myself, and there was no real safety net. So I feel like that's a lucky place to be. If you think about, there's probably a lot of people that come from that place where they have to build everything themselves, and they look at people like that are born into money, like, the Hilton family, or, all this, kids that are born, our perception as people that don't have that money, our perception is like, well, they can do whatever the fuck they want. Like their dad and their mom, they have all this money. They can start a business, they can fail, they can start another business, they can fail. But do we really know that that's what it's like? I mean, there's a lot of really rich people, and you see it in interviews, and they're like, dude, my kids aren't getting shit. I want my kids to know what it's like to build something. At the same time, like, you have to wonder, like, is that really true? I don't know. But you also hear a lot of times where like entrepreneurs that have seen a lot of success and they built up that success on their own. They didn't have any kind of like financial backing or any of that kind of stuff. They tend to sort of look down on people that didn't build it all up themselves. Like they inherited a company and And I wonder if even that is kind of a dick thing, because like you just really never know what the fuck people are going through. So like I think there's also this misconception that money and happiness are connected in some way or another. But then if you really not even dig deep, but if you just like look in a little bit, you see so many scenarios where somebody won the lottery and their life went to shit, and like, you know, people that are miserable, they get check into fucking hospitals for depression and stuff at the top of their success. And it's kind of like, I think there's a misconception from a lot of us that weren't really born into money, that think that like those people that are born into money are happy, when, you know, their struggles are their struggles, and there's no way for us to know what they're going through. So even if they are born into money and their parents buy them all the cars and all the shit they want, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just stuff. Like, stuff isn't going to do it, you know? So like, I feel grateful that I wasn't born into that kind of thing. Like, you know, I had to build it all myself. So, I mean, whatever. I mean, lots of people had to do that. It's really not a big deal. I mean, it's just a matter of putting in the work, you know? So, but as far as like the whole idea of money making you happy, like I find that to be a weird concept. And I remember it was so normal before I started thinking like this. I'm like, oh man, you know, imagine if I had like $10 million, like everything would be so easy. And it's like, now I don't think that that's the case. Like I just really don't think that money and happiness are even connected at all. But like a lot of us really think on that level. Like I haven't achieved nearly the financial success that I planned to, but I've had like some years that were really good, and I've had some things that panned out really well for me. Like a couple examples, like I do motion graphics. I own a motion graphics company, and right before the housing market crashed, like my business was doing so good. I was making a ton of money. There was just tons of money coming in, and you know, I had a team and all that shit. And I think back to those days, and I was just fucking miserable, man. Like I just was the most unhappy that I'd ever been. And it's not because of the money. Like the money just didn't do anything to change that. It was shit that I needed to fix internally. Like I needed to work on shit in myself, mentally, physically, all that shit was all out of whack. So the money didn't do shit to make me happy. And like at the same time, I was making good money. The fucking housing market had crashed. So I bought a house, and I ended up selling that house. It was like 10 years after. So like the fucking house was almost doubled in value. So I ended up with like a big ass check. As I was approaching finishing that deal, I was like, oh my God, like I'm going to have all this money, and like, it's going to be so awesome. But it was the weirdest fucking shit. Like when I put that check in my bank, my mood, my happiness, all this stuff, it barely changed. Like, I don't know. It was very surprising. I do see more value in it now because I mean, like I have some stability having that in there. So I'm not gonna discount and be like, I don't give a fuck that it was in there. But it was just surprising that like it didn't have the same effect that I thought it would have. So when I think about people that are born into like millions and billions, and financial struggles are probably never going to be something that they ever have to deal with. Those people still have issues, you know, they still have all this internal shit that they have to deal with. And just coming from a situation like that probably comes with a lot of shit too, because like, I feel kind of bad for a lot of these people that are born into this money, because they're likely never going to know what it's like to have to do everything themselves. They're likely never going to know what it's like to take a leap of faith and know that like if it doesn't work out, then they're fucked. Like if you burn a bridge behind you, not in the negative sense, but it's like there's a thing I heard in some business shit. I can't remember where I heard it, but it was talking about when you're starting a business venture and you want to commit to it 100%. They say sort of like burn every fucking bridge behind you, not like burn all your relationships, but like make it so that you don't have an escape. And they compared it to, I wish I prepared a little more for this, because there was like an army, this was a long fucking time ago when they raided places in boats and shit. And he brought his army to the shore of wherever the fuck they were going to invade. And like, I think they were, you know, outnumbered and all this kind of shit. But he had this thing in his mind where it was like, retreat is not an option. So once he got everybody settled on the shore, he fucking burned all the boats. So like they couldn't even leave, you know? So, that shit's crazy. I've been trying to think about that too, because like, I don't know, there's something cool about that. Just knowing that you cannot retreat, you know, you've made this decision and you got nothing to fall back on. Part of that could be seen as sort of irresponsible, like not having a backup plan. But at the same time, there's something cool about it to think like you're going all in. And like, if retreat is not an option, then you're going to keep pushing forward. So when I think about people that are born into money and there's this perception that they can be bailed out if shit doesn't go their way, I see that as a negative, because like I like the fact that I gained all of these skills, you know, building something. Like there's something to be said about that. So to envy somebody that was born into money and just because they can buy any fucking shit that they want and watches and shoes and fucking cars and all that kind of stuff, like that's not, like, who gives a fuck about that? And like to be bitter towards somebody that maybe has the ability to buy that stuff, you know, like it's a phrase that I've heard before in the graph culture. It's kind of like, you know, there's people that come from more, you know, financially well-off neighborhoods and then people that come from the hood. And a lot of times the people that come from the hood, you know, sort of had this, they don't really respect the people. They're like, oh, we had to do this, and they could just use their mommy's credit card. Like, I feel like I've heard that before. Coming from the hood, like, I don't know what that's like. So, I mean, I know that there's some struggles there, but that sort of comparison is just such a negative thing that just seems unnecessary. Like, we can all learn from each other. So overall, I keep going back to it, but it just seems like way more healthy to just compare yourself to yourself yesterday or yourself that last year and use that as your benchmark to, you know, to compare, you know, to make that comparison. You know, you're never going to have, there's always going to be somebody doing better than you. There's always going to be somebody doing worse than you. There's always going to be somebody that has more, has less. The list is endless, but like at the end of the day, how much does that really affect what you're doing? Does it really hold you back? Does it keep you from doing what you want to do just because somebody has more or less than you? It just doesn't. Like, it doesn't at all. So on that kind of note, I heard this on this, I use this app, this Waking Up app. It's like a guided meditation thing. I've been meditating for like, I don't know, 15 years or so. And sometimes like I find it hard to get in the groove, and these sort of guided things I find them helpful, but I don't know. I listened to it this morning and it was about gratitude. And so if he was talking about, you find yourself in a scenario where you're just kind of unhappy or frustrated, like you're stuck in traffic or something like that. And he was finding ways to find gratitude even in that situation, because he was like, somebody right now is living in a war zone and they would fucking love to be sitting in traffic right now and have not be living in a war zone or some shit like that, you know? So it's like, you can always find things to be grateful for in your own shit rather than looking at other people's shit. Like, you know, do you have a fucking dog that's super cool? Like, can you be grateful for that? Like, even if you're all stressed out, like I do that all the time. Like I've been trying really hard to focus on this gratitude thing, because like there was another thing that I heard, I think it was yesterday, that hit me kind of hard, that it was just sort of like, and this might actually be a little off topic, but it was like, he was talking about how everything that you do, there's going to be a last time that you do that. So like to the dog thing, like there's going to be it's very depressing to think about it, but there's going to be a last time that I pet one of my dogs. And like I had a dog pass just recently. So there was a last time that I got to hug that dog, you know? And so when I heard that, I was like, fuck, dude, I gotta be grateful for, and I've been kind of on this gratitude thing. It's like a buzzword that's going around. If you follow any kind of business people, there's a lot of, you know, Gary Vee talks about gratitude a lot. So it's coming around, but I think it could really help in this thing of comparison. So if you're like comparing somebody else, like there's something in your own life that you can be grateful for. So like I have this really old dog that like, I know like how much longer could he possibly live? I think he's like 20 something years old. I rescued him. I don't even know, like 16 years ago. And they said he was 10. I don't think he was 10, but he's fucking old. So like now when I see him, I try to remind myself, like, just be grateful, because I spent a lot of years looking at him and thinking like, fuck, I wonder how many more years I got. Do I have more years? Do I have months? Like, I don't know. And I spent probably the last, fuck, I don't know, like 8 or 9 years or whatever. Like, think those thoughts would pop up all the time. So I'm trying to shift it over to like, when I see him, I pick him up and I'm like, dude, I'm so fucking grateful that you're still here, you know, like I still get to do this. I get to hug you and all this kind of shit. So like, if you're stuck in this kind of like comparing yourself kind of thing, like if you're looking at someone else's graph and thinking like, fuck, I wish I was better, you know, and like there's something within your own shit that you can be grateful for. There's something in your own progress that you can be grateful for. So maybe that's like something that you can incorporate into your mindset. If you're dealing, I don't even know, maybe some people like fucking comparing themselves to other. I just don't think that it's healthy. And I see a lot of negativity getting pushed out in the world. And like, dude, like if you're fucking looking at the world right now, like the last fucking thing we need is more negativity. I mean, fuck. It's like people need to chill the fuck out, like to a certain degree. I know there's issues. I fucking get it. I know, but like, dude, it's too fucking much negativity. So like find some shit to be grateful for, and this whole comparing who has it better and who has it worse and you're this and I'm that and all, it's just there's easier, I feel like there's just better ways to go about things. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think fuck, I don't know. I don't know what else to talk about, but I just this one I didn't plan at all. I just turned on the mic. I was like, let's just see what happens. It was so much easier to do these kinds of things with Cub. So, you know, that's another thing that I should have been more grateful for while he was here. You know, like I had no fucking idea that this was going to end up, that he was going to pass so suddenly. So it was like I took for granted that he was going to be sitting at the other end of the table. And then when I would run out of shit to talk about, he would say some shit. And so that's another lesson for me to, I should have been more, you know, present and grateful for him sitting there. I mean, I am grateful. And anyway, I hope that there's some fucking information in there that's helpful. And I'm pretty sure there's something relevant that I can cut in from Cub. If not, I'll just cut in something that I liked. And yeah, we're going to keep it going. So thank you all for the support. I am out. Thank you.
Fucking everything was about me. That dude fucking cut me off. He knows it was me. Yeah. He knows I was going in that lane. He knows that, you know, everything to me was about me. Everything was personal. Everything was because of me, and I could fix everything, you know? So it's like that fixed mindset kept me stuck and kept me, my trajectory, how do you say it? Trajectory. Trajectory. I'm tired.
Let's go to the blooper reel.
Yeah. So, okay. At that point, when I was feeling that way about myself, that all things were about me, and that I could control other people and all the things. I could fix it. I could change it. I could switch it, whatever. My entire existence was going straight downhill. Once I realized, fuck, man, you selfish prick. It's not about you. It's not all about you. Other people, life shows up for them as well. That dude, his wife could have been having a baby. His mom just had a heart attack. He was, whoa, who knows what. And like you said, you adopt that mentality like, dude, I'm good. I'm going to just turn up my music and slow down a little bit. My ride is way smoother when I go slow anyway. This shit's, you know, fresh like this. And like adopting that positive growth kind of mindset, like, it's all good. I kind of wanted to get off right here anyway. I'm hungry. Like, just like looking at things that way instead. Like, man, I feel like I've wasted so many years and I've burned so many bridges acting so fixed on these premature and misguided notions and ideas of how things are and should be. And it's only with time and, again, taking the advice and guidance from somewhere else besides up in my head has been power.
All right.
Appreciate each and every one of you guys who are supporting the cause and continue to spread the love. And yeah, stay up.